Move the section a little bit more.
إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our souls and from our evil deeds. I bear witness today that there is no deity, there is no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is His servant and messenger. Those who are guided by Allah, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. It is, O you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered and die not except as Muslims. And I can't wait to tell you how excited I am to be back with you today. Alhamdulillah. We hit the tarmac Friday night. Mason picked us up about 6:30, and we haven't stopped since we got here. And this class will not be quite as fun as some of the other classes we've had, and as enlightening because it's sort of like raw material, but it's something you need to have in the time of the year to present it. So we'll present that today, and time permitting, I want to share with you, a professor sent me 20 reviews or so, just some of them where I make presentations at colleges. And the reason I'd like to share that with you is because you can see that every time you make $1 donation to this organization, or $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, that's the kind of work we're able to do, and you can hear how enlightened these people are. Just because we take a stand and we go out there, we build bridges of peace and understanding.
I should play lotto so that I can.
I want to welcome all of you that are here for the first time, and I'm not sure if, let's see if I can get it right, Tiara, Sierra, Liliana, and Agnes. Did I get it right?
Good job. Round of applause for that one.
Now, did you come while I was gone? Yes. Okay, alhamdulillah. We want to welcome you to our family. We hope that you will always be with us. We will pray for you when we pray, and we're here to serve. Our motto in ISLM, the Islamic Society of Leading American Muslims, is that we accept you wherever you are in your faith journey. We have a no condemnation policy, a no judgment policy. If anybody criticizes you or judges you, let me know and I'll beat them up in the parking lot. I will put an end to it. That's just a joke. I'm a non-violent man. But we don't tolerate any kind of criticism here. We're here to love you. We're here to nurture you. We're here to encourage you toward growth, toward spiritual growth. That's what we're here for. Who else is here for the first time? Leaving anyone out? Please introduce yourself.
Dr. Sen. I've been here about 4 years, and I'm glad I found you.
Thank you, Doctor. We hope you'll always join us every time you can. You're probably on call a lot of weekends, right?
2 more hospitals to go.
2 more hospitals to go. May Allah give you strength in this time of month. It is an auspicious time of the month. Before I get started, let me go back just a few announcements. The last iftar for the month of Ramadan that we have as a group will be July the 25th at 8 p.m. at 6 miles north of here at St. Luke's United Methodist Church in the Fellowship Hall. The invite has been sent. If you're not a part of the group and you're not being notified as to what's going on in the group, please speak to Maysoon, who's in the right-hand corner with the red blouse on. Call her at 407-288-6931 and tell her I want to know what's going on with ISLAM, the Islamic Society of Leading American Muslims, and she'll hook you up. Also, these classes are all uploaded onto our webpage, and you are welcome to access that, and also Mason can hook you up with that as well, so that you can repeat and relearn what you have learned already. We do collect non-perishable items on a weekly basis to go to the food pantries, unbroken cell phones, which are converted to phones that help victims of domestic violence. And we collect, as you see here, empty ink cartridges and get a few bucks to help do dial that way. So those are the announcements I think that I need to make today, inshallah. So, today I have a handout, and teachers never give handouts until the end of the lecture because people get lost in the handouts and start shuffling them and reading them instead of paying attention. I do want to talk to you about zakat because it is a pillar of Islam. It's very important that you know how to pay it, whether you're supposed to pay it. So I've sort of got a question and answer format to begin with to answer some questions for you about it. For those of you who have a mortgage, you really do not have to pay, usually. You do not have to pay zakat because you have debts. And I'll explain that more in detail, inshallah. And let's see, I need this over here. This might be my first Sunday back. I don't have the paper.
People have thousands and thousands of dollars in the bank and they still pay mortgage. So they should pay the zakat.
That's why I said some people, a lot of people. So, not all people. That is correct. So, it is a religious obligation on all adult Muslims who meet the requirements of zakah as dependent on nisab and hawl. Okay, and these are the two important terms, and I'm going to obviously go over each of them for you so that you understand what they mean. To contribute generally 2.5% of savings to the needy. And the needy are described in Surah 9, verse 60. There are 8 groups of people, and I'll go over that with you as well today. The reason I say generally is because there are different zakats on certain merchandise. For example, agriculture, whether it's irrigated or non-irrigated, there's a different way that it's paid. But just generally, I'm going to give you the general information. If you have more specific questions, you can email them to me and I will answer them for you, inshallah. It is the third pillar of Islam. It is just after prayer and just before fasting. That is indicative of how important it is for you to understand about this. Though the material might be drier than the tafsir that I usually teach, I want you to see the importance. It is a pillar of Islam. It is the supporting part of the supporting mechanism of your faith, of your actual experience as a Muslim. Zakah in Arabic means purification, growth, and blessings. So we know that everything we do as Muslims, we do in order to purify ourselves. We're in this month of Ramadan in efforts to purify ourselves, to gain taqwa, to gain God consciousness, to gain an awareness, to bring all of our extremities back into submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were the way they were the day we were born. All of us came into this world in submission to Allah. 85% of us, I should say, that's not all of us. Unless you were a C-section or maybe you were turned in the birth canal, most of you came out of the birth canal prostrating to Allah, but all of us came out perfect. None of us came out with the knowledge of swearing, lying, stealing, or any of those things. We were absolutely perfect. We were not born into sin. Please make room for more as they come in. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. So paying zakat is meant to remind Muslims to be appreciative of the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon us and to empower those that have less. And often in Islam we see verses that say men and women who pray, men and women who fast, men and women who give charity, and we see men and women, men and women, men and women. We see this equality issue. And so there's also this equality when socioeconomic status is different in Islam. The wealthy have an obligation in Islam to make sure that the poor are taken care of, that they are not experiencing these levels, extreme levels of poverty. And this is part of what zakat is about, the beauty of zakat. So what is nisab?
It's like the minimum. Oh, sorry.
The minimum amount of wealth a Muslim must have after calculating necessary expenses to be eligible to contribute to zakat. So that's what I meant about helping you determine whether you have to pay or not. Nisab is equivalent to the value of 3 ounces of gold. Now value of gold changes every day, right?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to give you a website in a few minutes that you can look it up. You'll know what the value of gold is, and that'll help you determine whether you pay or not. How it is defined is the completion period for a zakat asset, which is 1 lunar year. And I'm just going to give you a simple example of this. Let's say that I am a real estate agent and I sold a commercial building and my commission on that building was $100,000. And I sold that building on the very first day of Ramadan of last year. On the first day of Ramadan this year, because it's on the lunar calendar, if I held on to that money and I didn't have any debts, I held on to that money, it's surplus, then I would be obliged to pay 2.5%, which would be how much? $2,500, right? Okay. I don't always trust my math off the cuff like that. So, everybody understands these two terms? Very important for you to know these terms.
If people have the stocks and those things.
I'm going to go over all of that. I actually got all of that separated. So.
Could you go back further and
Oh,
finish reading the whole thing?
Sure. Let me know when you're ready for me to move on.
Okay.
Okay. So, every adult Muslim who meets the requirements of Nisab and Hawl in a calendar year must pay Zakat for that year. There are some conditions that may require others, a wali, a guardian of a minor, for instance, to pay Zakat too. As always, it is best to consult with your local imam or scholar for clarification. I'm also going to cover today situations of divorce, situations of custody, so you'll know who is responsible for that, inshallah. If it doesn't, the questions are answered, just email me and I'll make sure I give you a specific answer. Zakat should be paid as soon as possible prior to or at the time that you earn the requisite amount of nisab each lunar year or 1 year after you have last paid it. Now, most people, and here it is tip, a good way to ensure zakat is made in a timely fashion is to pay your zakat during Ramadan. Why would you want to pay it in Ramadan?
Bigger blessings.
Bigger blessings, exactly. This is the month of blessings, and so that's why most people do pay it in the month of Ramadan. Is it a requirement?
Yes.
Only if you can.
It's a requirement to pay it. It's not a requirement to pay it in Ramadan. Let's say I earned that $100,000 on that building in Dhul Hijjah. When would it be due? The next Dhul Hijjah, if I held on to that money and did not use it. So I want to make sure you understand that. Most people do pay it in Ramadan because of the blessings. It's just become, everybody wants to cash in on the value coupons that Allah offers in the month of Ramadan.
But even if you pay throughout year, you will still get the reward.
Absolutely. But the ruling on it is to pay it 1 year from the time you have the surplus. That's just the ruling, okay? And so I want to make sure I teach you the rulings according to Islamic teaching.
But you said if you hold on to it, so if you spend it, then you're not.
But if you spend it, it's not surplus. The key word to zakat is surplus or savings. If I need a car, I earn $100,000 today. But I don't have any expenses. I'm independently wealthy. My house is paid for, but I gotta eat. So I spend some of that money on groceries. Maybe my car is getting dilapidated, so I buy another car. Whatever, it remains surplus for 1 year is what I pay on. Does that make sense? I gotta live. I'm entitled to live on what I earn. But anything that's above and beyond my expenses, you'll understand this more when I get to the actual point where I break it down for you. But I want to give you some rulings that are very important for you to know, because it is a pillar of Islam. According to the Holy Quran, Surah 9 and verse 60, there are 8 categories of people who qualify to be beneficiaries of zakat. And I'll be talking about different kinds of zakat later on in the class because that's also an issue of fusion. But I have a slide on that and I just want you to know in advance that I have that. Here are those groups: the poor, the needy, the collectors of zakat, those whose hearts are to be won over. So people that are looking at becoming Muslim, they would be actual recipients of this zakat. This would go into a fund called Beit Mal sometimes, and this fund would be distributed by local authorities. For example, the Jama Masjid also collects. We collect, and we're going to talk about some other issues with that as well. And we give it to people that fit these categories because it has to be divided by 8. One of the categories, for example, is freed slaves. People say, well, we don't have slaves anymore. That's not true. Victims of human trafficking are slaves. And Tampa, Florida is the 3rd largest place in the United States for human trafficking right now. So do we have, is this applicable? Yes, it is. And it should be there to help those people. And a lot of these young people that are being human trafficking now are being forced into prostitution. All the more reason why the Muslims should rise up, pay their zakat, and donate this money to the right causes. And I want to tell you that for me, it is such a responsibility and so hard to keep up with it. Because let's say that as a group we collect $8,000. Then there's $1,000 for each group. $1,000. I'm going to make sure that that $1,000 gets to that group of people. If you donate the money to the organization, where is your intention to give that money to? To the organization. So what happens is, when you donate this money and you write on your check, there's a copy to ISLAM, it's really not for ISLAM, it's for these 8 groups of people. So we have to save the cash donations, put that money in the bank, since it was written to us, pull out the cash from donations in order to be able to give these people cash. Because let's say, for example, that you're in a homeless shelter. Do you think you got a bank account? No. One year we gave 8 teenagers, runaway teenagers, Muslims, that were in the comment house money so that they can have Eid. Because of confidentiality, we were not allowed to have their names, but they gave us a written statement that those Muslims, runaway teenagers, got that money. So there's trust. Yes.
Are you allowed to do it yourself? Take it upon yourself?
You could do it yourself. Yes.
And they are Muslim.
They are Muslims. They were Muslim runaways. Yes.
Do you have to give your zakat to Muslims?
You don't have to give your zakat to Muslims, but most scholars say that they are entitled to it first.
First come first. Everybody
So-
wash their hands, own hands.
Yes, sister?
There were 9 categories in that list.
Oh, yeah, and I'm going to go over that again. Let me just go back and I'll go over them again. The poor, the needy, the collectors of the zakat, those who are inclined to Islam, captives, debtors, a mediator or someone who pays from personal monies to fix or mediate problems among the people, those people in the cause of Allah, so people, da'is, people who are fighting for the cause of Islam, and travelers. We're the only religion that has fund for travelers, called the wayfarer in most translations. No other religion has money for that. So, if you have ever been involved in the politics of a masjid, you will know that periodically people stop and they'll say, well, I'm on my way to Miami, I was coming from New York and I ran out of gas. How many people have known this to happen? Okay? And I need money. Right in this class, we've had people that have come, no one was in the masjid, and they came over here and said, I'm out of juice. And this is the money that goes to the travelers in that situation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, let me cover this. As a 501c3 organization, if we give money to people, we have to give them a 1099 because that is considered income. Now I know that some masjids don't do that, but that is the law. Okay, so if you come to me after and tell me, well, we don't do that, or such and such a masjid doesn't do that, I'll say, good, they're not abiding by the law. That's up to them. If they get caught, that's on them. As a Muslim, I'm going to abide by the law. So that's why we turn all of our zakat into cash. and we distribute it in that manner. Because that money is not for Islam, Inc. And you shouldn't get a tax write-off when you're giving money for an individual, because isn't that the same as stealing or misappropriating funds? That's how I see it. If I'm wrong, Allah knows best. So, checks written to ISLM Inc. for this purpose are not for ISLM Inc. and require saving cash donations in order to give these funds freely to the appropriate recipient. It is consistent with the law and with our intention. If your intention is to give money, thank you, my good teacher. If your intention is to give money for dawah, and you get a tax write-off for that, and I give that money to someone else, isn't there a conflict there?
Yeah.
I want to see if you agree with that. So, Islam Inc. implements distribution by dividing donations intended for the zakat by the 9 groups stipulated in the Quran and distributes it accordingly. We have, in every case that we can, recipients sign for donations when possible. Every year we give money at the coalition. Every year there's always been Muslims that are in the homeless shelter here in Orlando. And that breaks my heart because in the first masjid of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, homeless people came there. And there is not a masjid to my knowledge in the United States that has emulated that practice. As a matter of fact, what is really sad is we have a disease in our heart and people come to the masjid and they're looking for money. We see people walk away, oh God, there they come again. You know? And that's unfortunately a lot of attitudes. Instead of us saying, MashaAllah, Allah has given to me, and we can give to these people, we actually talk about them in negative ways. And we say stereotypical things that, well, they should be able to work. Well, perhaps they're mentally ill. Perhaps they served this country and they came back with PTSD. Remember that ISLM has a no judgment zone. And Planet Fitness took that many years ago. That was my statement before Planet Fitness ever came into being. I have a little bit of an issue with them because of that. So, what is the difference between zakah and sadaqah? In the language of the Holy Quran, zakah and sadaqah are the same. In practice, however, sadaqah is the term used to indicate voluntary charity given while zakah is obligatory. What we are talking about today is a pillar of Islam. Therefore, it is what? Obligatory. Very good.
Why not kill the 2 birds with one stone? Sadaqah and zakat together.
Because that's not how Allah told us to do it.
Okay.
Now, zakat al-mal, commonly called zakat, is due when a person's wealth reaches the nisab amount and can be paid any time during the year. Zakat al-fitr is paid by the head of the household for each member of the family before the Eid al-Fitr prayer. Zakat al-Fitr is about the price of 1 meal, estimated at $10. Some masjids say 8, some say 10. Allah knows best. You leave it up to your judgment. What would it cost you to eat a meal? By the time you go to a restaurant and eat, it's usually $10. Unless you're getting a Happy Meal from McDonald's, and then you're really not getting a meal, you're getting garbage. I hope nobody here likes McDonald's. Sorry, I disappointed you.
But it's true.
But it's fillers and it's not real food, so you get what you pay for. So, oh yes, I sure can. So anything that you want me to, I want to make sure you get this because it's a pillar. And like I said, I know it's not as exciting as a tafsir, but it's a need-to-know basis. You really need to know this stuff. You need to understand this because you will have to answer about how you handle this on the day of judgment.
If you got 5 people in your family, you should give $50.
$50, yes. Now, in the Quran, you can go and you can. I'm going to show you that. Wait till I get to the slide. I'm going to show you another option that comes from the Quran. Is everybody get this? Well, oh, that one's not on, but ours, we don't need that.
Because it's the shelter you had us.
No problem. Okay. We ready for me to move on now? Okay. In Surah 23, verse 1 through 4, successful indeed are the believers. Truly to a happy state shall attain the believers, those who humble themselves in their prayer, and who turn away from all that is frivolous, and who are intent on inner purity. And many scholars interpret that inner purity as giving zakat. This, in about 13 different translations, I've seen that says in giving zakat. So putting things in perspective during hard times or hardship, a lot of us may be going through financial difficulty. Your body has a right on you, your family has a right to food, you have a right to shelter. These are important things to have. You must take care of those things first before you give money. This is why, let me ask you something, can you give away something and say it's in the cause of Allah when you owe somebody money? No. The whole Islamic concept is that we don't live outside of our means. Now, if I have a surplus, but I have borrowed $100,000 from Nijma, and I have a written agreement with her, like it says in the Quran, that I'm paying her back so much a month, because it's a business agreement, and I have that, who gets the money before I give it away to somebody else? Nijma, because I owe Nijma money. So if you have money, you should pay your debts before you start giving. That's the Islamic financial concept.
And can she say to you, brother, I know it's time for zakat and you normally pay me such and such amount, I want you to give it to the poor and just pick up from for me, is that okay?
She could say that, and you could do that.
I could say I don't want it back.
Yeah, and she could even say, I don't want it back. At the time I would say, alhamdulillah. And then I could give some other people. But just remember that on the day of judgment, this is key, people. I want you all to hear this. If you don't hear anything else, I'll say to you. A lot of people do not know this. How many people have been to a janazah and somebody in the family would say, is there anybody here that the deceased owes money?
Yes.
Why do you think they do that?
The person's soul.
For the person's soul, because you can't get released until your debts are paid. And this is the danger of having all this Western financing that we have. It's interesting because in the Western world, has anybody here besides me ever been the executor of someone's estate? Okay. How long did it take you to wrap up that estate? Yeah. You're given a year to do it typically. So Islamically, you're like in a holding cell until your bills are paid. So when we think that, no, you can't live without a credit card, you owe your fasting, it's got to be done. If it's not done by you, you need to tell your family so they do your fasting for you if you're terminally ill. If you owe money, that money's got to be paid. This is the importance of this, folks. So whilst it might not be the most exciting subject you've ever heard, outside of prayer and fasting in Ramadan and Hajj and Shahada, there's nothing more important. These are the pillars of your faith.
Just a quick question. Can you repeat what you said? If you owed her $100,000, who gets paid first and why?
If I owe her $100,000, how is it not stealing? I'm going to use the word stealing. For me to come over here and give my beloved brother $5,000 or $6,000 when I owe her money. She has the first right on my money.
Okay.
Because I borrowed money from her. So how can I give charity when I borrowed from somebody else? I'm giving away her money. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. That's the sort of principle.
So we're looking at the full amount, not the monthly obligation? In other words, as long as that debt is there, you really can't, you're not entitled to give any zakat, or not entitled, you're not responsible for giving zakat? Or is it zakat?
I'm going to show you that in a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to break it down for you. There are some cases, I'm going to show you the exceptions. Okay, inshallah. But for the most part, if your debt is there, you don't pay zakat. Okay? And I think you'll understand if you just stay with me. I know it's not an easy subject to even teach. I struggle with it every time I teach it.
But in this world, everybody else is debt.
I don't have any debt.
Thank God, not me.
I'm going to just tell you that that's not true. I know Muslims that don't have debt. I know Muslims that their houses are paid for. And my cars are paid for. And I'd rather drive a car that costs $1,200 and it be paid for than to buy a car that's $25,000, but I don't own that car, the bank owns that car. But I mean, I'm just teaching you Islamic principles of money in Zakat. Yes,
You mentioned with making a fast to tell your family. Is it a way or?
well, Muslims fast. So, in your case, if you, let's say you're a revert to Islam, I would ask somebody, look, I owe this many days of fasting. If something happens to me, get a chance, would you please make them up for me? I had, you know, because of my medical conditions, my wife did some fasting for me. But you see, you get to feed the poor as well. So if you got the money, you can feed the poor as a concession. But when you die, if that money is not paid or you have not fasted, it's got to be paid. That's the importance. That's the lesson. And certainly, we shall test you with something of fear, hunger, loss of wealth, lives and fruits, but give glad tidings as sabarin, to a sabarin, the patient ones. So Allah said, does man think that we will attain to faith with mere words? This is in Surah Ankabut, verses 1 through 4. La, no. I tested them aforetime and I will test them now to see who is the true among the false. We are going to be tested. You're going to be tested with your children. You're going to be tested with your health. You're going to be tested with your finances. And actually there are ahadith out there that talk about the correlation of your test is a correlation of how much Allah loves you. I know Allah loves me. I have no doubt about Allah's love for me. But that doesn't mean if you aren't tested, that Allah doesn't love you. But there is a sign for people that if you are highly tested, then this is one of the signs that Allah loves you. So when we are tested, we say, Shukran Allah. Every test that comes, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, I got tested. Something for me to get through, to be patient, for me to be grateful to Allah. Alhamdulillah, I had a stroke. And for those of you who visited me in the hospital, you heard me say that, and it was from my heart. I don't think I could put on an act up there when I was paralyzed on my left side. It was genuine. I thank Allah for every trial I ever had, because it is a gift. And that's how Muslims see things. That is a sign of the patient person, that we thank Allah for whatever comes our way.
You know, it bothers me that if we get, can I ask you one question?
Yes, you can. I'm sorry.
If we get pension and whatever, so many things, money, but they give you the amount of money too, but it's not in cash. It is they give you monthly minimum distribution.
Right.
So what should you do?
I won't cover that. I've got a slide on that. I've got a slide on stocks and retirement funds and all of that. So if you let me get to that, instead of jumping around, I think the class will flow better for you and might make a little more sense for you. Now, yeah, I need to move up the slides because I don't have my clicker today. And
You're on previous.
it didn't move.
Yeah, this one.
So what's going on? Can you help me? Oh, you moved it for me? Oh, good. Thank you. That's wonderful. I like that. Yes. Okay.
Why is it just sitting there?
In Surah Al-Baqarah, in verse 276, Allah will destroy riba, yusri, and will give increase for sadaqah. And I want to say something, you know, Allah knows best, but I just want to put this out, folks. If I could do one thing, if I could inspire you to do one thing, I would inspire everybody in this room to cut up every credit card you have except one. And on that one, you'd have a limit of $300. So you could rent a car if you needed to. But you got to have a credit card to rent a car.
I don't have, thank God, nothing to play.
Alhamdulillah. And that's what I would really prefer, is that we just cut our cards up. Allah will destroy riba, yusri, and will give increase for sadaqah. There's an increase when you give, but you will never be able to give as long as you're in debt. As long as you live it out of your means. As long as when you go to the Millennium Mall and you walk by that store, that Cartier or that Forever 21 or that Coach store, and you see, and I sound like I'm picking on the ladies, men are just as bad, okay? I'm just thinking of the stores that come to me. And you see that bag.
Forever
and-
21?
Abercrombie and Fitch,
Okay.
Banana Republic.
Let me just
Express.
say this.
Tommy.
You can tell I'm not a shopper, okay? Don't throw me under the bus for that. Whatever store it is, when you go by and the shaitan whispers to you that something jumps out of that window and says to you, you will never look good if you don't have that. And then you put it on a credit card. You will never feel good until you pay off that credit card. And you will never really experience Islam. You will never have peace as long as all these bills are coming in the mail. So, try to live, really work hard on trying to get out of debt and stay out of that. Live in your means.
Yes.
All right. And look who's compared to these people. Allah does not like the disbelievers, the sinners. So these people that are using riba and usury are being compared to what? Disbelievers and sinners. And I'm just trying to put it in perspective, and I feel like, wow, I've come back today with a big paddle. And you know I don't like paddles. But it's so important for us to get the... Allah wants us to be free. Allah wants us to be at peace. And you're not at peace when you're trying to keep up with the Joneses or the Smiths or anybody else. Any other surname you want to use, the Siddiquis or the Swedes or anybody's name you want to use, okay? Did you move it for me, sister?
I didn't. Do you want to?
Please do. Alhamdulillah.